Okay, so let's set up Prometheus with SQL exporter. And this is not a tutorial in any ways. I'm just showing how this can be done. This is not a full-blown tutorial or anything like that. Okay, so Prometheus, as it says, it's an open source metrics collection tool. So it can basically act as an endpoint or as an API, which where we can query from the Prometheus to get some data about something. Let's say it can be any resource. Prometheus can read from any resource or a service, and those result can be read from the Prometheus API. Let's take a database, for example. Database can be a resource, so we can read the data about the database or data inside the database with some exporters. So you can read about Prometheus from their wiki, and you can install the Prometheus package in your distribution of choice. In my case, I have the Prometheus package in the Arch wiki. It's there, you can install it and enable if you want, or start the service. So once that's done, I'm just also going to read through the exporters page because that's something which is really helpful. Exporters are something which will help us to read data, or exporters are something which exposes data about something. It acts as a bridge so that Prometheus can read from these exporters. I can put it this way. Let's say we have a database. So out of the box, Prometheus can read metrics about database. I mean, it's about what or how the database behaves, like active connections or load or something like that. But it doesn't give you any data within the database, right? And that's where we can use things like an exporter. An exporter is something which will grab. It can behave in different ways, but an SQL exporter in our case, which we can find in the exporters. So here, the SQL exporter is basically something which will pull out all the data from the database, and which then acts as an endpoint or as an API, and then Prometheus can read from this SQL exporter. And then once Prometheus gets this, other tools like any other tools or visualization tools can then basically call the Prometheus API to read the data. So exporters will give the actual as exporters can actually behave in different ways, as I just said. It can give you data about something or data within something, or anyways. This is the SQL exporter that we are going to use, myself using uh, PostgreSQL, Postgres, but it could be any other database in your case. So SQL exporter is going to help us to get the data from the database. So let's start by let's set up a database. Actually, I already have a database in my system, which is which is inside my Docker container. You can pull any PostgreSQL image and build a database. In my case, I already have a database running. Let's So I already have a database running, so I'm not going to set up things again. So make sure you have a database running so that we can test this. It could be inside the database, inside the Docker, or inside your host. It can be anywhere, but in my case, it's just inside my container. Once that's done, you can go back to the SQL exporter GitHub page where it says some configuration details about the SQL exporter. It could be, yeah. So this is how the SQL exporter configuration can look like. It can have a data source, which is the important part, and this can actually point to the database details. It could be a remote, it could be in the host, as I said, it can be inside a container. And this is the collectors, which we will go in detail in a bit. But the first step is to define the container or start the PostgreSQL server. So in my case, in this case, I already started an PSQL container, as you saw. My database is actually running. So this is the same configuration that we just saw. And here, if you notice here, there is something which I'm only focused in, which is the data source name, which in this case is a Postgres database. So that's why I use the URI in URI like Postgres. But if in your case, if it's something different, then it can be, I've seen that settings page right here somewhere, but it's different for any other SQL engines. I mean, the URI is different for other databases. But assuming that you're using Postgres, you can use this URI. This should be the password for the database, the IP address, port, then the database name, and then disable the SSL mode because I have enabled the SSL mode, and since I'm running in the local host, I don't want the SSL. And once that part is done, once setting up the database, I assume you already have a database. But if that part is complete, then the next thing that we are interested in is the collectors. Right now, the collectors, as it says, is a file which will then be executed in the database, right? So the file name can be anything as long as it ends with collectors.yml. That's okay. I mean, we can have any file as collectors and it can end with the name collectors.yml. So in my case, I have a file, collector file, vfst.collector.yml, and that's what I've defined here as collectors. So if you go inside it, I have a simple SQL query which you can, in the matrix name, you can give any name, and then help key labels is the column which you are interested in, and this could be the query. The values, this is another column which you are interested in from getting the data. I mean, this could be another column, and this could be another column. And once that collector file is populated with what you need, your SQL query basically, it can be anything, it can be any query. Once that's completed, you can basically run the SQL exporter. I have a Docker container, a Docker compose file, which is not working as expected. I will show you that in a bit. But so since because of that, I need to run this big long command. We are running the SQL exporter. We are running the SQL exporter image. After pulling that, that's the Burning Alchemist SQL exporter image. Once you pull the image, run this command. The name for the container is SQL exporter, and then basically we are mounting the SQL exporter YAML file that we just saw to the root, And also we are also mounting the vfst, the collector.yaml file, to the root, and we are port forwarding to 9399, and then we need to run this argument with config file as SQL exporter, which we just saw. Did we just saw it? Wait, we didn't see that, right? Okay, we just saw this. This is the SQL exporter file, which I thought I didn't share. So this is the SQL exporter file that we just saw, and that's it. We can run this command, and it will make the SQL exporter up, right? And if you go to 9399 now, we can see the SQL exporter page, and if you go to the matrices, you can see all this data inside the database, which I have. I mean, I have connected to the same database from dbeaver. So this is basically the file, the data 81.81.44. Yep. So as you saw, we have an endpoint which is ready. I mean, Prometheus can then now read from this endpoint, and then basically we can view all this data inside Prometheus. Now I have Prometheus already running. Just start the service, Prometheus.service. That's it. You don't need any configuration file as of now. So once that's done, I have a alert running. So that's why it's showing this way. Go to the Prometheus page, and we can run queries from it inside this. And as you just saw, I have an alert which we can use to query that. Here you go. So from the data that we saw, we can run commands from within this, or this could be any other values like amp, or what we just said. I'm sorry. Go to that one. No. Equal to 1. Yep. So we can basically run queries from within the Prometheus. And what we're interested in is the alerts, right? Yeah, now it's firing. So I have an alert which I've set in my etc Prometheus first rules.yaml. Let's go to that file. Take a look at it. Okay, so in the alert, I have an alert name and the expression that we just saw. That's basically the query, and then we can set any value that we can see from the SQL exporter. Basically, we can have a look into this. We can look into any of these queries, any of these value names, and basically set that here, right here. And then we can also set an expression if that's value is greater than or equal to, or anything like that. And it's running for 1 minute, each minute. Once that's done, that's what we just see. That is what we are actually seeing in the alerts. So actually the current value is 81.44, and if I set a different value, then that will be different. And speaking of, I have also done setup of Grafana, which I'm not interested in talking right now, but we will talk. So that's how we can run this. I mean, set up the SQL exporter. Yeah, speaking of the compose file, I have the compose file opened right here. So basically, this is the compose file, which is no way different from what we saw or what we ran from the command line. Okay, maybe. I mean, running like this is not recommended, so that's why I'm recommending a compose file. Exec it. So if we go into the container itself, we can see the same files that we have mounted. That's not interest. I mean, that's not that's what we expect. If you run the uh, running commands, if you view the commands, you can see we this is what the command which is actually running inside the container. But same goes with compose. Compose. So if I run my compose file, it's actually running the same command as you just saw. But for some reason, I mean, I just wanted to share this with you so that if you get into trouble, you can actually answer my question why this is behaving like this. And now the matrix all of a sudden is not working. But I can of course access the page, but I cannot go into the matrix. So this is because I'm not sure why this is behaving like that. As I just said, there is no technical difference between running from the compose file and running from the command line. But anyways, I just wanted to uh, share that if you're running this inside the container, this is something that you need to take care of. Okay, so okay, I didn't compose down. Okay, so anyways, so if you are actually using Grafana with respect to the data that we have from the database, which is actually really cool. So I just wanted to share that as well. In the alerts, I can create a new alert and select a matrix. Oops. You need to basically connect, first of all, our Prometheus instance. So in the connections, I already have few connections that I can show you, data sources. So I have actually connected to my Prometheus instance, which is actually running in 9399, which you just saw. Oh, you didn't see that, right? It's 9090. Yep, this is the actual SQL exporter URL, which we can then get the data from. And basically, the data the SQL exporter is actually exposing is something Grafana can understand. So just keep the endpoint of the matrix, which is the SQL exporter. I hope you can just now see these data. Yes. And once you can see the data, just feed in this endpoint to Prometheus and just leave other things blank. Go to home and then basically I'm interested in the alert rules. So now here you can now create a new alert with the instances Prometheus 2 is what I have just done, what I've just connected. I mean, this is my connection name, and the matrix it can be VFST matrix. This is something that we set in the configuration while setting it up here, which is basically the collectors. And inside the collectors are the labels, that means the value name and value, and the labels is value name is what we have, and we can choose any of the values, right? So I already have few alerts, I'm not creating any more. So here my rule is like my first rule is if the value goes above 80, just fire the alert. And the second rule I have is if the value is within the range of 80 to 90, 8090. And now I'm just going to go to my database and make some changes. Let's say it's 71, right? Save the change, go to Grafana, and then Grafana will, in my case, yeah, here you go. That's updated right now. Go and fetch the data from SQL Exporter every 1 minute. You can set your own time, but that's what we set. In this case, this is actually firing now. If we refresh again, that's below the threshold, so it says it's inactive, and hopefully everything is normal right now. So this is how we can set some alerts with your query. You can set basically many expressions inside the Grafana. I didn't want to go into Grafana in this video. I didn't want to, but I just wanted to. I just shared. These are some cool things that you can do, but I believe Prometheus alerts are a bit restricted. I'm not giving a full overview of the alerts, but basically with Grafana I liked the UI and the alerting, but it's very limited to what we can do with it. Basically the type of the threshold are these. I haven't gone into Prometheus alerts really. I mean the expressions that we can use. I mean Prometheus alerts is there are a ton of things that we can do inside this in the configuration. Yep. So you can send messages and these things. I mean we can also set the same inside Grafana. You can send emails when we get an alert. But I haven't went into Prometheus alerts. I'm hopefully going into that, but I just wanted to share this whole SQL exporter thing setup. I think it will be helpful for someone else. And yeah, that's it. Let's see in another video if I upload with respect to this. Catch you guys in the next video. Bye.